Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats. I'm at ICC to analyze a game played in Team 4545 League between Chrisgianno and Frank 001. This was played in the 5th round of Team Event 56, and it was awarded the Game of the Week prize. And it's a very interesting game, and it's one of the more exciting games of the week that we've seen in a while. I think there's something to be gained from anybody that watches this video. Hopefully we can shed some light on this encounter. Also, N4 has provided some detailed analysis, which I haven't looked at yet. I'll bring that up when I'm done with it and see how we agree or disagree. And congratulations to N4. He will become a FIDE master as soon as his federation, the Finland Chess Federation, pays the fee to FIDE. He will be given that title, and it's well earned. Okay, so this is interesting. It seems like a peculiar move, but it's just another way to go into a Stonewall Dutch. How should White handle this? Well, just develop. That's the simplest way, and that's what he does. Okay, so now what's going to happen is the game revolves around these two squares. E4 and E5 in the English descriptive, we could say both sides are trying to control the King 5 square. Okay, and then we know what we mean because this is the King file, 5th square. And Black's notation is written from Black's point of view, and that's the 5th square. A lot of good books in English descriptive. If you don't know it, well, you need to learn it. There's a lot of good books. Okay. So it's going to revolve, as I said, around this square. And what's interesting is Black has totally ceded E5 to White, but White can kick and will kick Black out of E4 because he has a pawn move in reserve. And I think that White handled this fine, and we'll see how that turns out here in a little bit. So White reinforces E5. And Black just develops, and White needs to castle. If White had castled kingside here, who knows, right? Who knows? But we'll get to that in a moment. And now, as we see, both sides have occupied the King 5 square. Now, I still think that what White should do is castle kingside here. Eventually, White's going to castle queenside to invite the old opposite side castling, and let's see who can attack the other guy's king successfully. Take that approach. Generally speaking, in a locked position like this, it's just better to castle kingside. That's my feeling, because a lot of times in the Dutch defense, Black will play the queen to E8, and it'll come out to H4. Well, here it's not going to get to these squares. White has them under control, and I think if White does that, he's going to stand a little bit better. So it's interesting how White goes to evict Black from the square, but to do so he has to trade off a little bit of wood, and that's what he does. Now, I like to keep my pieces on, so that's my approach. I've got that knight there. I'd like to let Black take. Let's not develop a Black piece with an exchange, okay? Because knight takes allows Black to develop his bishop. So that in itself is a good reason to sit a move and castle. Even if White wants to castle queenside, if he really wants to, that would be a choice. Give Black the chance to trade. So, like I say, I would prefer this move, and then if take, and I'll just take back with the knight. And I've got exactly what I want. Now, Black has to do some risk here if he wants to try to chase White out of this a little bit. Let's see. Here's what I'm getting at. Let's see if this really makes any sense at all. The idea is E5 may or may not become a target, but look at this bishop. It basically has no future, and White's getting ready to bolster E4 with or E5 rather with F4. White has control of the H file. F4 might not be a bad move coming up. What can Black do to prevent it? Maybe this. Well, White just goes here anyway. And if taking en passant, White's gonna play here. Now G3 is a little weak, but the black position is getting compromised a little bit on the king side. So this would have been a position where white would have ideally have castled queen side because the position was opening up. But I'm just going to a possible variation just to see what could happen here. The long-term prospects favor white simply because this is a better bishop, and yet black is close to having an even game. White's going to have to play this precisely to win. This is just a sample line. But you know, you could picture if had white castled queenside, do the same things. But what's the alternative aside from castling? Now we don't know black is going to. Well, forget about queenside castling. We don't know black's going to take here. He may not. Black may in turn just decide to support e4 a little more. Well, now white can go into the maneuver that I mentioned of evicting that knight. Now f3 is coming. This threatens to win a piece. Okay, where does this knight go? And the answer is it doesn't. Okay, so black's going to have to give something up here. Maybe put the bishop here so to answer f3 with knight d6. But white's doesn't have a whole lot of activity here, but white's got a little more boardroom simply because white's bishops are out, black's aren't. White's got a knight on the 5th rank, black doesn't. White has a potential pawn break with e4 at some point. Not now, maybe eventually. Just takes a little bit of maneuvering to get it in. But the game's still relatively even, and it remains to be seen what could happen. But anyway, white makes this exchange, and again, I don't like making the exchange simply because it develops this black piece. And Nxd7 is the one that said, don't make exchanges that develop your opponent's pieces. Well, sometimes you have to. I don't think white had to in this case. Okay, so let's see what happens next. And then white goes and reoccupies e5. Now he's ready for the maneuver that I mentioned to play f3. So he's doing this at a slight price. It got this bishop developed, and it traded one piece that white probably would have liked to have kept. But now he evicts the knight, and black retreats. So what should white do now? What should white do? Well, white needs to castle, and I think castling kingside is better because really, where's black's counterplay in this position unless white castles queenside? Black is not set up to attack the white king like black tries to do in a Dutch stonewall defense. So I think castling queenside is a little over-ambitious on white's part. That's just my opinion. He doesn't do it yet. But instead he weakens his kingside a little bit. Clearly this is indicating an intention to play g4 and try to open up some lines on the king side. Might have been better to, if you're going to castle kingside or queenside, do it now and then decide how you're going to break things open. Because this opens up this diagonal for what it's worth, gives black something to eyeball, and he does. He says, hey, I don't know what that check's going to do. Maybe it won't do anything, but I want to at least have it in reserve. Maybe it'll make white weaken his pawns on the 3rd rank or something. And now white does decide that it's time to castle and have it done with. And white's getting ready. He wants to play his pawn to g4 and the rook over. But really, it's going to be a while, actually, before white gets anything going here. And at the same time, it's going to be a while before black gets anything going here on the queen side. But now black has an active plan. Black can start running pawns on the queen side, trying to open up lines. And it's interesting how this happens. Black takes this moment to exchange another piece, and white decides he wants to preserve his dark squared bishop, so he takes with the pawn and tempos the bishop, and the bishop just comes back. And now it's white's turn, and here comes the attack. And a lot of people look at this and say, yeah, I prefer white. But I don't know. The simple fact that black at least has some semblance of a plan. He can start running pawns on the queen side. Gives black a little glimmer of hope here. So he puts his bishop back, decided it didn't belong on e8 after all. Now maybe what white should do is take this pawn now. the point being it's going to give him a protected pass pawn. And just bank on that. You get the G file opened up, but White's playing kind of a little over ambitiously, and Black gets his king to safety. Now comes the exchanges. There's the protected pass pawn. So I don't know. I think actually now maybe White's a little bit better. Certainly White's made some progress. The G file has opened up. Black's queenside attack hasn't started yet, but it's going to. It's going to here in a moment. So is the game even, or has White got a little edge? You know, I was thinking it was earlier equal. Now with the fact that White's got this pass pawn, I think White's just a wee bit ahead, but it's kind of hard to say. Now I'm not sure that's the best move, and the reason I say that, it gives Black some pressure on e5 after it's all said and done, for what it's worth. Plus, this bishop can get in White's way. White wants to use this G file, so how should he use it? Well, let's try advancing this pawn up the board a little bit, see how far we can get it. Think about variations when we get closer, see how Black reacts. But Black just redeploys the queen over towards the enemy king, and White has to suddenly step a little carefully here. And here, this is I think is a bad move. The reason is the Black attack hadn't started. I said it was coming, and it is going to come all the sooner now, simply because White has advanced his pawns. Anytime you advance your pawns in front of your king when it's castled, if your opponent's doing any kind of a pawn break or pawn storm against you, it's going to get there quicker, simply because the enemy pawns are closer. Yeah, attacking the queen, but it's only one move now required by Black to challenge a pawn with another pawn. If this pawn stays up back on b2, it's going to take Black longer to get that pawn up to a3, and even that might not be enough. So b4 I think is just simply wrong, and it's going to give Black a little bit of glimmer of hope here. And this pawn is weak, and this bishop is now defending it. And this is an interesting move. Gives up a pawn, and I don't think that's right. That's just my impression. It gets it there a little. Black gets it with a gain of tempo, and Black's a pawn ahead for what it's worth. And what does White have to show for it? Well, he's got the open G file, and as I said earlier, he has managed to block that. Okay, and if White's not careful, these pawns may fall. This bishop could get attacked out of there, and Black may be gobbling both these pawns. And at the same time, the White king is now exposed. I think is more exposed than the Black king. So White's kind of misfired a little bit. And if I didn't mention, we don't have the timestamps. You can see that when the game was nominated, it was out of both players' history. I didn't find it in Frank 001's library or anywhere, but I did look at the timestamps, and White did take his time on some of the moves, and so did Black. But I have a mention of the timestamps on a. Let's see, that's not the other one. Let's see, we're on move 23. It's just hard to have to keep checking with these things. It's much better when I have them in the game, which is why it's important you folks save these games to your library so that then they're not lost. Okay, so White has 21 minutes left. Black has 38. Black's actually moving a little quicker here. But Black's next move comes promptly. Let's see. 25 seconds are gained on his clock, meaning he took 20 seconds on the move, and it's fairly obvious what Black should do now. And I've already pointed to the move. It's a5. Let's get the attack going. So that's what Black does. And earlier, a few moves ago, Black's attack was several moves away. Now, just the way White's played it, it's right on top of him. And White really hasn't gained much since this Bishop G5 maneuver, has he? This H pawn I was recommending to push is still sitting there. Okay, so White chases the queen out, but it just chases it back to attack the enemy king. And now white's taken a rook off the open file. So not sure they're doing all that great here. And this is actually a mistake. And black did spend about 4 minutes. I did look at this. And black missed. Black has an advantage now and missed a good shot. You might want to pause the video. It's very tactical and see what you can come up with. Now, naturally, when we look at this, we see that this bishop's attacked, but we need to move it. But interesting move is just to take this pawn. And then the obvious move that white might try, well, what happens on this? Well, black has this wonderful sacrifice. Rook takes, okay? And this pawn is not going anywhere. It's not going to promote. If white moves his king, he loses his queen, right? And for a rook, and then this pawn is dangerous. And if he accepts it, suddenly this rook comes into play, and white's just in a world of hurt here. His king is extremely exposed to all kinds of threats. It doesn't really matter where he goes. If he goes to b3 or b2, I think pawn takes, discovered or double check, force the king out. The king's just going to march up to the board, and he's probably going to be mated soon. And if king b1, black can continue the attack with a simple discovered check, and white's quite embarrassed here, right? See, and this is just over. White's in a world of hurt, and like I say, coming up is probably going to get him mated. Let's see. Let's take a quick look at it for the fun of it. Okay, takes. Now where are you going to put the king? Okay, now black has so many good moves here. Rook a3 check seems to force the. Where's the king go? My goodness. Maybe this is just deadly. Oh, we can go back to d2. Okay, wait. I think you got to check with the queen here. Now it's dangerous for the king to come back. He may end up getting mated. So, see, for instance, king b2. This queen check forces him into a mate. And I think king b3 we just mate immediately, right? So who wants to defend this position? I mean, my goodness. Black's got to be winning this. How? The only question is how. Bishop b6 check looks good. Queen b4 check looks good. I'm sure black's winning this. I would wager a week's salary, I guess, if I want to come up with any expression. Who wants to defend this as white? So let's go back. Oh, wrong one. Okay, I hit the right button. This reverts us back to the position. So the pawn takes fails, and I'm pretty sure. Wait, you're going to take here first. I'm pretty sure pawn takes fails. E7 fails. This check is still a threat. Even on bishop e7, I think rook takes is going to give black a great game. So black had a very winnable game here, and he just let it slip. And he played bishop e8. Now suddenly white's in the game, very much so. He gains this critical tempo on the rook, so the rook saves itself. But now, lo and behold, whoops, the black queen is checkmated, so to speak. The black queen has no retreat. It was very active, and suddenly, through threat of material gain, white has found a way to trap that queen. And now white's winning. And the question is, what went wrong? Because suddenly this game is eventually going to turn around, and black's going to be in command. And it seems surprising, but that's what happens. But black just tries what he can, get as much stuff going as he can. And but black's just down a piece for the queen, and should probably resign. But white doesn't play this carefully and lets black in. Now this makes sense. It's closing off the file, but that's good. It keeps the C file closed. White doesn't need to give black any unnecessary counterplay. His king is still weak. But this is the point where white just starts falling apart. Well, think of what you would do here. You might want to pause the video and what moves strike you. And I'll bring up the timestamp in a moment and see how much time White took on this move. He didn't take a lot of time. But what would you do here with White? Okay, pause the video. Okay, you've resumed. I think two reasonable candidate moves for White are just take this pawn, okay, or bring the bishop back. Now, bringing the bishop back just plays things safe. Nothing wrong with it. I'm thinking the pawn's the best move. I just wanted to point it out that either one's playable, and instead White comes up with something, something totally unexpected here. Let's see, we're on move 31. Let me look at the timestamps. Okay, let's see. White began this move with, gotta find it. See, we're on move 32. So on 31 he had 16 minutes left. And after this move he has 16 minutes and 28 seconds, meaning White only took 17 seconds on this move. And it just totally surprised me that White would play this. There's no need to play this. Okay? I don't know what White was thinking, but this is where he starts going downhill. He takes this pawn. There was no need whatsoever to take that pawn. White's got the advantage of a queen for a bishop. That's decisive. Now suddenly White's advantage is only a queen for two bishops. And if this board opens up, those bishops can have, black bishops can have a field day. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So when White had all that time on his clock, how he could decide to make this move in 17 seconds is beyond me. I can't answer. But black must take back, otherwise he's just going to really be in trouble. And White gets 2 pawns for the piece, but the point is that it's one less piece. That's the point I want to make. It's one less piece that White has to operate. Black actually has more pieces than White does now. They both have 2 rooks, but black has 2 bishops or White has a queen. Now, that's not enough. White's still doing better here, but black is suddenly a little closer than he belonged, okay? You can't keep giving an inch to somebody because eventually it's going to catch up to you. You know, anyone rated over 1800 is capable of getting a decisive material advantage of anybody over 2200. Well, except maybe not a super grandmaster unless he's just totally negligent. But I'm just saying it's possible. But once you get that advantage, the stronger player is going to stop making mistakes and say, wait a minute, I'm going to lose this. I can't lose this game to this guy I should beat. And he's going to start digging in and playing the right move. And every time you make a wrong move, you let him a little bit closer. And that's kind of what happens. Maybe White just expected this game to play itself. So black saves his bishop, which was loose. And really, and one thing to note, where's the White kingside attack? It never materialized. So now White needs to play for the ending. How do you do that? Well, I guess he's on the right path. You start finding ways to get the rooks traded off. You try to find a target. What's a target? F5's weak, B7 is weak. Maybe you could win one of those pawns. You've got this wonderful passed pawn. Maybe it's time to get that thing up to the 8th rank, although it's kind of hard. Black's controlling E8 with a bishop and 2 rooks, but or find a way to advance this A pawn and get another passed pawn as quickly as possible. These seem to be winning strategies. Let's see how White does it. So black says, well, I got a bishop I got to activate. And White invites black to give up 2 rooks for the queen, and then White would be up a rook for a bishop times 2 or 2 exchanges or 2 qualities, but black wants none of that. Doesn't play queen or rook to c8. But here, once again, I think White should be trying for a4. Black can't really conveniently attack it. White can get ample defenders on it, and if black spends too much time watching A4, this E7 pawn may run. Anyway, but now suddenly all of Black's pieces are in the game. Even that bishop on H5, which is on the side of the board, it's covering some key squares. It's covering D1 and E2. White might like to get behind that pass pawn, but he can't without giving up more material. Anyway, White doesn't need that. He just doubles up on the C file. But really, has White really gained anything in the last few moves? Well, he's activated his rook. But the E pawn is not close to advancing yet. Getting a pass pawn on the queen side is entirely out of the question. Still, White hasn't done anything to activate that. So let's see what happens. You know, this looks menacing. It doesn't look like a bad choice. Let's get the rook on the 7th where it can do more damage. It looks natural. Black preserves his pawn, but White should still be thinking about getting this pawn up the board and maybe working on B6. But White wants to trade things off, and Black wants none of that and says, nope, not going to trade. And you know, again, this looks imposing, but is White really threatening anything? G7 is covered. White needs another attacker on it, maybe with Queen G3. But let's see what happens, or try to shove E7 in somehow, or well, you can't really put the rook on F7 to menace F6 because of the pin. F7 is covered by Black. Let's see what Black does. He just secures one of his weak squares, F5. Black's just holding on. You know, White's still better here, but he's not making any progress. And this looks great too. Now, I mean, if you're White, you're still winning this, and you've maximized the position of the two rooks and the queen. But what else has changed in the position in the last few minutes? And the answer is nothing. Maybe the idea is maximize the pieces first, then get them going. Well, you can't push A4 now. Nothing securing that pawn. Okay, so let's see what happens. And Black just occupies the square that White should have occupied a little bit ago. Okay, and now there's a threat attacking this pawn. And this is kind of a peculiar move. White's really going wrong now. I guess it's some kind of a thinking deficiency. What White needs to do is play Rook C4. Okay, this move should win. Okay, what's it do? Well, it defends this pawn. Okay, the rooks on the 7th really weren't doing much, and it makes Black find a new square for his rook because Black can't afford to trade. Okay, B6 is just going to get surrounded and won. Even if White has to give up a rook for the bishop and pawn, he's going to be left with a queen against a rook and a bishop, and two connected pass pawns on the queen side, and one sitting here on E6. You know, game set match White. But Rook C4 just makes total sense. Black's going to have to decline the rook trade. Where's he going to go? H3 or A3? Okay, fine. Now let's see. What can we do with White? Well, like I say, we can go menace this pawn. Okay, we can stick something on C6. That looks good. Queen can go to here, to D6, to C6, to B7. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do this. D6 might be good because C6 and B7 might allow Black to play Bishop E7. But even then, Black's defending, and even if Queen B7 isn't most precise, yeah. See, whoops, whoop, oh, hit the wrong, stopped the square too soon. You know, boom. You know, B6 is a problem for White, for Black. But you know, like I said when I started this, is some kind of a thinking deficiency. White doesn't want to give up his doubled rooks on the 7th. He's got them there. He doesn't want to get rid of them. Well, he had to. It was certainly better than this move. And now Black's starting to creep back in the game because now Black's just collected a pawn. Now it's not much, but it's a little bit closer to restoring material equality. If you look at the names here, Chrisgianno has 23 points and Frank has 20 points. This is a feature at ICC. You can get a running material account of how much forces they have, and in effect, Black is only the equivalent of 3 pawns down. Both sides have 4 pawns, and white has a queen worth 9 points versus 2 bishops which are worth 6 points. But the absence of this pawn on f4, it does a lot of things. It gives black a pass pawn, and once that pawn moves, suddenly this bishop springs to life. And 2 bishops on the open board, we know what they can do in a middle game. We know what they can do in all kinds of positions. Well, they can certainly do something in this middle game. This is not an ending. Black's suddenly got a lot of compensation because white's done nothing still to find a winning plan. His queenside pawns still haven't gotten going. The e6 pawn is still sitting there, and black still has a b pawn under his possession. So, and now the white king's a little further exposed, and now white finds the idea. Let's go attack on b6, but black gets a check in. Now white wants to trade rooks, but black doesn't want any part of it now because, boom, there's that discovered check I was talking about. Now all of a sudden white has to be careful. Where does he put his king? If he puts the king on b3, he's going to drop the rook on d2. So he comes back, and here comes another check. And then black just runs over here, and he says, I'm getting ready to, if you take my pawn on b6, I'm going to check you again. Or maybe I'm going to check you with my bishop on h5. All of a sudden, white's got all kinds of things to cover. White's made too much work for himself. He's allowed black all kinds of activity. And, the way I play, I try to play a restrictive type of chess. Even if you could prove white wins this, and technically white should win this still, but even if you can prove it, you've just given yourself a lot more analysis to look at, because you've got to start covering all these new possibilities that black has. And these all came about simply because white gave up the pawn on f4, and that allowed the light squared bishop of black's to get involved. Now, why do you want to have to stop and look at more possibilities? If you only have to look at 1 or 2 lines, and you know that each one is good for you, that's very desirable. But if you have to examine 5 or 6 lines, and some of them may not be appealing at all, why would you get yourself into that? So it's things to think about. Don't make moves that let your opponent's pieces get active, because it just gives you more headaches. So white tries to use his king as a fighting piece, chase that rook out of there. Rook can't go to h1. It's going to hang, so black's got to find a home for the rook. So he finds one. He shuts the white king off the 3rd rank, attacks another pawn. Then suddenly black would have 3 connected pass pawns, even though they're slow moving. Black's getting what he can get. Okay, and now white says, well, I want to trade rooks. I want to trade everything off, but black wants no part of that. And white can't do anything. It'd be great to get the queen to h8, but how are you going to do it? Well, you could play queen a8 and threaten a mate in 1. See what he does. Well, he does, see? Now, suddenly white's threatening to end the game. But it's black's move. And black can find things here. And certainly you forced him to find something, because certainly black sees this threat, one would expect. So black needs to make a square for his king, and that's the only square that's open, because pushing the pawn to h5 doesn't stop the mate. So now let's get this bishop activated. Let's see where he puts it. He puts it on f5. I might have thought h5 would have been better, but this works out. If white doesn't muster anything up, black's going to go collect that pawn on e6, and then it'll be even tougher for white to win this. If black can hold, especially if black can hold b6 and white can't get his queenside pawns rolling. Okay, so let's see what white does. White wants to trade. Yeah, I would too. But black says, go ahead, trade. And he does. But suddenly, what's supporting the white king? Okay, let's think about the white king for a second. He's in a small area now. He's cut off from the rest of the board. Okay? Now, if black had a bishop and knight, it might be hard for black to do anything here. But black has two bishops, and those bishops can cover each and every one of those squares. And black finds ways to generate some activity. So what white does is goes and attacks a pawn. But again, black has a myriad of opportunities available, and he immediately gives a check. And now white's replies are limited. He only has 3 legal moves, and no matter which one he picks, I think white's losing this at this point. Now check again, and check again, and suddenly white's checkmated. Just like that. Boom. Could he have avoided this? Let's look back. Okay, when white played queen b8. Wait, where were we? Yeah, white played queen b... Whoop, one more. Okay, white played queen b8. Black gives a check. Okay, white chose g1 or g2. What happens if white chooses f1? Well, I guess some of this transposes. We have this check forcing here and check, and notice how these bishops are covering. They're covering the 3rd rank now for white. You know, the rook was doing that job. These bishops are doing it now. Where does white put his king? He only has 1 legal move, and there's that mate again. What else can white do? Let's see. I gave f1. He played g2, right? That leaves g1. Well, I think it just still transposes. There's still a check, and white is left with 2 moves, and each one's going to run into a bishop check, and the other bishop will mate, right? Well, let's see. Maybe not. Yeah, he will. This is mate. And it's kind of ironic. I was talking earlier about this pawn needed to advance, and it never did. And it's taking us a flight square away from the white king. So white had a menacing-looking position, but he didn't have didn't find the right way to seal black off. And nothing has changed in the white position since the point that I gave white's winning plans. Nothing. The only thing that's changed is he's lost number 1, lost his f pawn, and number 2, he's got checkmated. Okay, let's see what N4 has to say about this game. Let's go all the way back, because I don't know what he said. I didn't read it. But now I'm going to read it for the first time. Now let's drag it over here. Okay, so he's got a comment on move 11. Yeah, I know hitting the forward 22 command would do it, but okay. Let's get it up here. Okay, instead of knight d7, well, let me bring it over here where you can read it. I don't have to copy and paste. Instead of knight takes d7, there was few slightly better moves for white. For example, castling moves or playing escape route for bishop with h3. Okay, so he says slightly better moves. So we're pretty much on the right track there. I was saying the game is pretty much even. So, but I think if they're slightly better because the move that he played developed the black bishop. Now let's see. He gives some more notes here. Let's see how it would be after castles, knight takes e5. What else? Okay, castles. And I think I did give knight takes e5. I don't remember, but this is the move he's saying. Okay, what else? So bishop takes g5, and now knight g5. Okay, this is what he's suggesting for black. Black wants, let me bring this over. Black wants to avoid the similar kind of endgame where of weak black bishop versus strong white knight that is mentioned on 11g5 line. Okay, so we haven't gotten to that yet. So let's see. He continues on with knight takes. Now he takes here. Okay, this is what N4 is giving. Wrong one. Knight takes. I don't need my MSN Messenger. How did that get up there? Okay, let's see. Knight g5. Black was the similar kind of line. Black king was strong. Black's bishop versus strong white knight is mentioned on g5 line. So knight takes g5, bishop takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes g5. Okay, and whoop, wrong one. No, that's the right one. F4, Queen E7. Now he gives C4. Okay, C4. White has slight edge due to his better bishop and queenside play. Okay, so yeah, pretty much what I said, that White's bishop is better, and White's threatening to take on D5 and either get a protected pass pawn or some entry points for his bishop, and an open C file that White will be occupying a little quicker than Black will. Okay, so he's right. Now let's see. The idea to attack on kingside with 11G5 looks typical Stonewall. Let's go back to it. I think I had mentioned something about a G5 line for Black. I think I'd mentioned this move, hadn't I? Or in a similar position, if not the same one. Okay, he gives it a question mark here. Looks typical Stonewall plan, but Black is just digging his own grave after. Let me just read it and I do it. He's going to do similar things after knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes, queen takes, C4 is what he gives. White edge is based on a few things. Let's see. G5 is mainly weakness that White can use. Then first, step by step by Black. Oh, dang it, lost it. Bring it back. Step by step by Black of kingside attack. White is far more active than its counterpart. And how does position get back to there? No, never mind. White's bishop is more active than its counterpart because it is not behind its pawns, I presume. His own pawn chain, okay. White controls his own strong point E5, but Black is not able to control E4 as much due to possibility of F3 and bishop D3 that can trade the knight from E4. So there, we did mention how White controls E5, but Black doesn't really control E4. Okay, so we're pretty close to saying the same things, just a little differently. Okay, when it's about the trade of bishop D3 to knight D6 was almost any manners, it will even apply or even magnify more than the weakness of the bishop D7 compared, because knight F3 will sit forever on dark squares safely, mainly on E5. This seems to be the only sideline analysis, but these same evaluations are proper analysis of many Stonewall positions where battle of E4 and E5 is the core strategy on both sides. Okay, so in a nutshell, we're pretty much agreeing, just saying it slightly differently. Okay, so I guess that makes us both feel good when we come up with the same things. Okay, so let's get to his next comments on move 19. Let's get to that point. Okay, bring the comment back. Okay, here he's saying G takes F5. This move would have needed some preparations. Okay, he gives the line E takes F5, bishop G5. I don't remember if this is what happened. I'm just going what he said. Queen C5. Here we see why. I lost this point. Lost my spot. Let's see. Here we see how opening up G line was too soon. Okay, so again, it is about, sorry for repeating it, the bad bishop on D7, which gets activated. Okay, so he's saying the bishop's getting activated here. Yeah, it does have E6, but it's certainly got more scope than before. Okay. Also, the E file gets half open and can be used with heavy pieces, and also tactical means opening up the diagonals and lines by pawn sack or advance D4 or C5. White doesn't get enough power on G line attack because Black has play on both center and the queen side. So let's look at that E file. The E file has opened up. Black can maybe get some play on there. White too, if he ever tries that E4 push. Okay, so we're pretty close to saying similar things. Okay, now his next comment's on move 21. Let's revert. Oh, we are in the main line. Okay. So he's commenting on B4, which I highly criticized. B4, this move has some tactical threats, but it leads black to open up the queen side with A5, which will be dangerous for white. Right, so he said what I said much quicker. I just made more of an explanation. I said black's attack's getting there quicker because white's allowed it by advancing his pawn. Okay, so what's his next comment? Okay, he's suggesting 25E6. Okay, that's his next comment. So let's see. He has no comment about what white did here. Now he says E6. Okay, so let's see. E5. No, he says E6. Isn't that what white played? Yeah, that's what white played. 25 E6. He's giving it an exclam. So I have said that black missed a shot here. And I've shown why white gets in trouble unless I misanalyzed. That's one of the reasons we make these videos, not to give you a perfect solution, but to stimulate your thought and chess analysis, because your analytical power will grow if you sit and work this out. It's sometimes you just get this stuff by investigation. You know, I see tactics coming up here. You have to sacrifice a piece to do it, but it's not the easiest thing to see unless you start looking for these things. But I was mentioning that king gets exposed. As soon as that his king was getting exposed, and suddenly the black queenside attack materialized quicker than white's, you can almost expect tactics to arise. Just as if white managed to open up the H file, you would expect tactics to arise. Just for instance, remove the white pawn on H3. We're all going to be thinking about moves like rook takes H7 at some point. Okay, don't tell me you're not, because you're going to. The tactics start flying when the lines start opening. So why can't black do the same thing? Rook takes A2, and that's kind of how I looked at it. So E6 I don't think was the right move, but it worked. Okay, so now his next comment is on move 31. So let's revert. So here is white has one material, as we noted. So his next comment's on move 31. Human's move. Let's keep position closed near own king. I offer another idea. Okay, one I didn't even consider. Okay, I picked the human move too. Keep the position closed around the king. So what he's saying is try E7. Okay, I didn't even look at that. Well, you still have the threat on the pawn on F5. I haven't looked at more of his notes yet. You've opened up the E6 square if you need it. Some kind of a jumping ground. Bishop takes F5 and bishop E6. That would trap the rook, right? What's he say? I mean, these are the threats I see, because I didn't even consider E7. Let's keep this. Okay, I offer another E7. Pawn would be hard to take, and the exclam mark comes from practical and tactical reasons. Black have to be ready to check tactics once in a while. That there will be some threats or sacks because of advanced pawn. Okay, so he's basically saying what I said. There's possibilities here, and it backs up what I said earlier. Don't try not to allow variations that open up lines for your opponents, because it's all the more stuff you have to look at. Now, I imagine black has resources, but once again, black is down material. He's down a queen for a piece. Black is losing. G6 secures F5, which white didn't want to take for whatever reason. I mentioned he could have. It gives the bishop plenty of room for flight squares. What else? Now, what's white going to do for tactics? Well, you can occupy E6. Maybe one good move would be play Rook E5. I mean, this is a tremendous style move. White's willing to give back some material. The point being, White's threatening to take the pawn on D5, and but more importantly, White's trying to deprive Black of his one trump in this position, controlling the dark squares. Now, even though the White pawns are doubled, White may be able to generate some threats against this king. I don't know. It's just, I'm not seeing anything forcing here. I'm just seeing ideas to explore. And again, even if whether that's all sound or not, it backs up what I say. Try not to make moves that give your opponent all kinds of tactical opportunities, or all kinds of don't open up lines so your opponent can utilize them. You have to analyze these things, and it's a double-edged sword. Black really can't afford to make moves. Pretty much any move he has in his position is going to allow White some kind of play, and E7 does that. So it's certainly a very interesting move. Is it the best move? I don't know. It should require Black to spend some clock time, and as a matter of fact, it would probably require White to spend some clock time too, looking at all the possibilities. But you know, what he played is fine. I'm sure N4 will agree with that. And just about everybody should. But it's interesting to see his, a FIDE Master Elect's take on this position. A lot of times you have luxuries. There's more than one way to win a game. Okay, so now let's see. Get to the point where bishop takes c4, and I said play bishop takes f5. If anything, bishop f1. Okay, bishop f32, bishop c4, probably intending to simplify the position more and try to play it safe. Nevertheless, this makes the game much harder for White. It's true White still has material advantage, and he have gotten rid of an obnoxious aggressive pawn pair. Bad things are White's rooks are a bit helpless against Black's bishop that may find safe spots. And that certainly proved to be true, didn't it? So pretty much he said the same things I have. Both said something the other didn't, but still overall, it makes, we agree, it makes White game harder to win. And I identified the winning plan right here. And if you look at the final position, the only difference in White's pawn structure at the end game was, at the final position, was these pawns disappeared. That's the only difference. Let's see. Let's just go forward. Go to the end of the game. Well, no, he didn't lose a2. I thought he did. Okay, so the only thing that changed was the pawn on f4 disappeared. White just maneuvered his queens and rooks around and maneuvered himself into a lost game. Let's back it up. I could have used the back command, but this works. Okay. So really, that's all the White did. I've identified a winning plan. Does he have one for White? No, he doesn't. He goes on to move 41. Let's go up to 41. He's saying now is almost the last time to use e7, but I can see right now why White might not want to do that. It's the thinking deficiency. He wants those rooks pressuring g7, so White didn't even consider it. Now let's see why N4 thinks it's a good idea. Now it was almost last moment to use 41 e7 to fork some Black pieces to be tired of defending. Right about this phase of the game, it started to be very difficult and also painful for White to finish the game because he only had 8 minutes on his clock while opponent had 25 minutes. Okay, so let's see. What does this do? He says it ties him up. Okay, Black's no longer having to guard g7, but he's having to cover the back rank, to some degree. Let's see. If Black plays rook a5, White can't yet play rook d8 because there will follow a take. She make a queen, and he takes it off. Well, I don't know. Maybe he can. This looks fatal. Very fatal. Where's black going to put his bishop? The answer is anywhere he puts it, white has a checkmate. Okay, so it does tie black down. He can't take a rook off the 8th rank. What's black to do here? He'd like to get this bishop on this diagonal, but I don't see how. The king can't go to g8. So black is tied down. He can't take a rook off the back rank. Yeah, e7 is a good move. And N4 doesn't say how white would win. I'll say it here. You go after the weak pawn on b6 and advance your a pawn, and white wins. It's going to take a while, but that's the way to do it. Now, what else does he have to say? Okay, let's see. All right, let's see now. There was a lot of versatile material I was able to found about this game, and mostly that's why it got my attention. Here is something that maybe we all can learn of this game. Pay attention to time. It's good to save some time because almost any position isn't easy enough to win in time shortage. Human isn't able to focus on many things, especially in time shortage. Player has advantage, mostly tries to attack on enemy king, but then there isn't much time to spend on defending own king. Okay, perfectly good logic there. With material advantage, wise human player, in parentheses, engine doesn't understand this, is tend to simplify position and make trades, but sometimes human only makes it harder to attack or defend by trading important pieces. Okay, so white could have used his, he did get him maximized, but he could have done more to tie black up. Okay, anyway, unfortunately now I must end this analysis and probably RATs find some crucial things about this endgame. Okay, well hopefully I did find some crucial things. E7 seems to be the move. What's black do? Okay, he can. Let's try to defend this square. Okay, let's see what we can come up with. That's the weak square. Okay, what should white do? Well, let's make sure this bishop doesn't defend that pawn. Okay, so let's put the queen here. Okay, now we got one attacker on this pawn. We're going to get another one there in a minute. How does black going to hold this? Well, he's shuffling pieces. He doesn't have a lot of activity. So now this gives black a chance to play bishop f7. Okay, fine. Now what we do is we go and attack it again. Okay, what can black do? He can't play bishop d4. Really, I think black's just flat out losing this. Let's see. Let's go back after this pawn. Maybe we could have tried the other rook, but I don't know. It's kind of, I hate to take the rook off that, but okay. Let's just safeguard the pawn. Come up here, and black's in a world of hurt. I mean, even in this position, white could play rook takes, queen takes. Now this pawn is menaced. Okay, this pawn is still there. It's on the board. Black can grab a pawn, but suddenly, look how active the white queen is. The threat is to take on f5 with check next, to take the bishop with check, which is guarding the rook. Whoops. Dang it, I lost the position. Okay, e7. What was I saying? Rook b8, then queen here, bishop here, then rook here, and this. And I was taking this, and here, and I was taking this. Let's try to take this with check first. Put the king here. Now let's get the king over to guard this pawn. We don't want to lose that pawn. Wow. Let's see. White's got to be winning this. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah, well, we can go there. The pin doesn't bother us. I don't know. For the sake of argument, let's just try a couple moves here. Even if black wins this pawn, I mean, whoops. There was not enough not enough attackers on that pawn. Black can't take that. So, but even if he can take it, I mean, this pawn is not going away. What's black do here? Here? Okay. I mean, white can bring the king up, if anything. Certainly the black defensive task here is just horrendous. You know, look at those pawns. They're just tying black in knots. Here, I've got a winning idea here. Let's just move this pawn. Move it again. Now, let's see. What was my winning idea? I guess it doesn't work. But this pawn's now a target. I'll come back. You know, just ugly for black. He's just totally stymied on all fronts. Like I say, let's just advance the king up the board. What can black do? Now his rooks aren't connected. Here. Let's see what this gets to. I mean, there may be a quicker way. I'm just fiddling around. Okay, I've got the king way up the board. Yeah, this should work. We're black shuffling pieces around, right? Now I'm going to come back over here. I got the right idea. Now I'm going to come there. And I'll just... Now, do I want to give up the queen at this point? Okay, let's see now. We'll run over there. Now the only thing black can try for is win this pawn. That's going to take him moves. Bishop's got to go 1, 2, 3, then move it out of there. 4, 5, 6, 7 moves to queen. Wow, that's not enough. Meanwhile, white's going to try to get the king over to d8. And if black gets off that diagonal, that's exactly what white will do. Get his king to d8. So black is just all tied up. No. I'll just get the king on d6. That'll do it. You know, I'm just going to get my king to d6. What are you going to do? You know, you're getting zugzwanged here. This should do it. Now here, and hello. Boom. You know, maybe I could have done that a move earlier, but and there's probably quicker wins in there. But one thing that was true about this entire line was white was in total control. So, you know, e7, I can see why white doesn't want to do it. He likes his rooks having that threat on g7, but the pawn move, as N-Fork says, is crippling. Well, anyway, it was a very interesting game. I love when they get this long, and part of the reason they're so long is we had two annotators. In effect, we had to take what N-Fork had to say and incorporate that. And it's a good example not to give up when you're down. And what can I say? Just well played on both sides. Just certain things that reasons why the game was won and became winnable and losable for both sides. Certainly we're not Magnus Carlsen or Bobby Fischer. We can't perform at the top level, but we can at least hopefully learn something from the way the games do turn out. I thank everyone so much for their time. There should be a video for round 6 in a few days. N-Fork's comments said he'll try to get his notes up soon. I'm not sure if there's a winner yet. I don't think there is, but then on to the playoffs, and then we'll wrap up League 56 and waiting for the next one. So thanks for looking, everyone. Good chess to you all. Take care.